Who would have thought that Federico Russo would pay attention to the modest and quiet Ursula Gonzalez? She was a student, just finishing her first year at the Economics University, while he was an independent adult, the owner of a fertilizer production plant. There was a 17-year age difference between them. They met at an economic forum where Federico was a speaker, imparting business wisdom to students. Ursula caught his eye immediately. She asked intelligent questions and attentively absorbed the essence of the answers, while others yawned and waited for the forum to end. She was one of the few who won a scholarship to study at that university. It was challenging for her to study alongside wealthy peers, those born with a silver spoon in their mouths. Ursula was accustomed to achieving everything herself, despite challenges and difficulties. But of course, she envied those who were lucky enough to be born into wealthy families. Ursula came from a small provincial town. Her parents were farmers who also had a couple of cows. It wasn't on an industrial scale, so money was scarce, but it was enough for the Gonzalez family. Initially, Ursula wanted to be a farmer too, but her parents convinced her to try moving to the capital city and getting an education. Besides, she excelled in school and grasped everything quickly. Her parents explained that global processes in the world couldn't be changed. It's easier for people to go to the supermarket and buy a packet of milk because it's cheaper than homemade. Also, their little town was slowly dying out. Young people were leaving, seeking happiness in bigger cities. What was there to do in this forgotten village? So, Ursula agreed to try. She passed the necessary exams and got into one of the best universities. Her parents sold both cows to provide her with some money to settle in the capital initially. Also, the scholarship covered only 70% of the tuition costs. The remaining 30% was paid by Ursula's parents from their own pockets. The daughter was very grateful for such a gift, so her studies always came first. She couldn't disappoint her parents, who had invested so much effort, hope, and money in her development, and she excelled as the top student until she met Federico. After the forum, he approached her. "Hello, Ursula Gonzalez, if I'm not mistaken?" "Yes, that's correct. Where do you have such knowledge from?" The girl smiled modestly and, out of embarrassment, lowered her eyes to the floor. "You must have studied agronomy, right?" Federico continued. "Otherwise, how would you know so much about the specifics of fertilizer production? After all, my business depends more on weather conditions than on the country's economic situation." "Senor Russo, your business depends equally on both weather conditions and the economic situation. And if your production company has good management, then even in a dry summer, you can still make a profit," Ursula quietly replied. "And how would that be?" "Development of new products, the use of marketing strategies, cooperation with agrotechnological companies, efficient cost management, and so on." Federico smiled. He already knew all of this, but he also knew that often what works in theory makes no sense in practice. "Sorry, is something wrong? You speak everything very correctly. Your summer vacation is coming soon, as I know. Would you like to work for me as an intern at the company during that time?" Ursula couldn't believe her ears. She was immensely happy. "Of course, I would gladly accept your offer." Federico Russo didn't need an intern, but he had enough money to pay for the work of the girl he liked. The modest student caught his eye, and as soon as she appeared in their office as an intern, Federico began to show her signs of attention. Of course, the employees whispered behind his back, "Well, she's about 20, and he's 37. Why is he messing with the girl? How much longer can he spin romances at work?" But all these rumors didn't reach Mr. Russo, otherwise, he would quickly fire those who wagged their tongues instead of working. Federico rented an apartment for the girl because the student dormitory closed for the summer vacation. Ursula's parents were very worried because renting such an apartment in the city center was an expensive pleasure, but their daughter reassured them. She assured them that in Federico's company, it was a normal practice. But, of course, it wasn't. After a month of internship, Federico invited the girl to his office. "Ursula, here's your salary." He handed her an envelope. The girl opened it and was astonished. "But you said you would pay for my internship symbolically. And here is a very large amount. Your salary is entirely my decision, and it's not up for discussion. Also, tomorrow evening, I'll pick you up, and we'll go to a restaurant to celebrate." "What are we celebrating?" "Well, how? Your first salary and your first month of work," explained Federico. But, before the girl could finish, the man continued, "I'll come at 7 p.m. Refusals are not accepted. Your salary will be enough to buy a beautiful dress. So until tomorrow." The man demonstratively looked at the door. Ursula silently retreated to the exit, thinking to herself, with this amount, I can buy myself 20 dresses. The next evening, Federico pulled up to the girl's house, where he had rented an apartment for her. He waited for her in the lobby with a bouquet of 101 roses. Ursula came out to him in a green evening dress with a back cutout. At first, she didn't like Federico. The age difference embarrassed her, but she couldn't resist his courting. Moreover, she had always wanted to feel like a princess, a rich girl who has everything. Their relationship progressed rapidly. Summer vacation ended, but Ursula didn't return to the dormitory. The internship also concluded, but Federico persuaded her to stay and live in the apartment. He would cover all the expenses and provide Ursula with pocket money so she wouldn't deny herself anything. Ursula completely forgot where she was heading and what she dreamed of. She rarely went to the university, skipped lectures, and spent more and more time with her new friends from wealthy families. Now she was wealthy too. Soon she was expelled for truancy and poor performance. Perhaps deep down panic engulfed her, but outwardly she showed no sign of it. She also decided not to tell her parents. She had her own life now, cheerful and carefree. She used to call her parents every day. Now it was once every 2 weeks. Their conversations became cold and more like weekly reports. Ursula talked about the weather in the capital, lied that she was the best student, asked about her parents' health, and that was the end of the conversation. She also hid her relationship with Federico from them. There was no need for her parents to know that for a year and a half she had been sleeping with a man almost 40 years older than her. They wouldn't understand. And Ursula and Federico were both satisfied with the arrangement. They spent evenings and sometimes weekends together. There were times when they could go a month without seeing each other because of his busy schedule. Ursula understood and accepted all of this. And actually, she didn't have time to feel lonely. Maybe she loved not Federico himself, but his money more. One day, when she came to Federico's office, she overheard whispers among the employees. Are they still together? Yes, almost 2 years now. And she still doesn't know he's married with 3 children? I think she knows, and she's fine with it. Her heart sank. Were the whispers of the employees true? Was Federico a married man, and she just a mistress? Distracted by this troubling thought, she received a message. Sweetie, are you okay? You haven't answered our calls for a week. Your mom and I are worried. This message somehow angered Ursula. She quickly replied, Dad, I'm fine. Just busy with a lot of stuff, exams. I'll call when I have time. Then came another message. Mom is sick. So what? Just a cold, she thought. I don't have time for this right now. Once, the girl was so attached to her mother and father, and what happened now? She didn't tell them anything, hid a lot, and at this moment, Ursula was only thinking about whether the rumors were true, so she didn't respond to her father's message. Forgetting why she had come to the office in the first place, Ursula burst into Federico's office. Did you forget to tell me something? My sunshine, what are you doing here? Federico was surprised, but he was happy to see the girl. I came to visit you, and instead of passionate sex in the office, I found out. Federico stood up from his chair, approached the petite girl with dark hair, and hugged her. My love, what happened? Why are you so upset? A tear rolled down the girl's cheek. You have a wife and children. 3 of them. You didn't tell me. I thought you loved only me, you liar, traitor. Emotions overflowed and Ursula pounded her fists on Federico's broad shoulders. I love only you. You're the only one I need. I don't even live with my wife. We're in the process of divorcing, living in different houses. I visit her because we have children together. We only communicate about the children. Nothing else binds us, she confessed tearfully. Really? Ursula looked at Federico with big tearful eyes. Why would I lie to you, my darling? Don't you feel my love? Federico reassured her. Ursula, calming down, embraced Federico, feeling her heart beating in unison with his. I'm sorry for reacting like that, my love, she said softly, her voice trembling. I'm just so afraid of losing you. Federico nodded, smiling understandingly. I understand, my dear, but we're together, and no circumstances can separate us. They embraced again, savoring the closeness. Ursula believed her fears were unfounded and that Federico genuinely loved her. After those words, the couple dissolved into a passionate kiss, and the primary goal of the visit was justified. Feeling upbeat, Ursula left the office. She didn't call her father back, nor did she respond to his last message. She even forgot what he had written. She had her own life, rich and carefree. Time passed. A month, 2. Ursula was enjoying her morning coffee when her father called. Sweetheart, hi. You finally answered. We miss you. How are you? How's your studies? Dad. Too many questions. I'm fine, Ursula replied. Ursula, your mom is sick. Her father's voice trailed off, and Ursula remembered he had mentioned this before. Still, she hasn't recovered yet? It's very bad. She has cancer. I don't know how much longer she'll last. Come home. She really wants to see you, but I can't, Ursula thought. I have so many plans, social events, concerts, and our 2-year anniversary with Federico. Dad, I can come in 2 weeks. I'm swamped with studies, the young woman lied. Ursula, you don't understand. You have to come. Okay, I'll try, she replied, ending the call, saying she had errands to run. Her father felt emotionally detached, as if his daughter didn't care. She was their only child. Will she come? The mother whispered, unable to speak louder. Yes, dear, she'll come. Ursula continued living her life, absorbed in her concerns and plans, while her mother slowly faded away. She tried to suppress feelings of guilt and fear, focusing on her studies and her relationship with Federico. 2 weeks passed, but Ursula never came. Her father became silent, sinking into deep depression. Every day, sitting by his wife's bedside, he prayed for Ursula to just show up, so his wife could see her one last time. In the end, Ursula's mother passed away, embraced by her husband, but without hearing a farewell from her child. She never saw her beloved daughter's eyes again, never hugged her one last time, never said how much she loved her. Ursula's father, consumed by grief and disappointment, could only send her one message, containing the date and time of the funeral. Ursula sat at home, staring at her phone screen. Seconds felt like hours as she tried to comprehend what she had read. Her heart pounded harder, trying to find a way out of this abyss of pain and shock. Suddenly, it all dawned on her. She realized she had lost her mother forever. It was the moment when all her plans and worries crumbled like a house of cards. In that moment, her life was filled with only one thing: the realization of the tragedy that had shattered her heart. Without hesitation, Ursula quickly gathered her belongings and headed to the train station. She knew that now her place was by her father's side, that now her duty was to be where she was needed most. The journey to her hometown seemed endless, every mile reminding her of what she missed, of what she didn't do. Time seemed like a sinister opponent, taking her further and further away from the chance to say a final goodbye to her mother. When Ursula finally arrived in her hometown, she headed straight from the station to her father's house. She opened the door with the old key and called out, "Dad, it's me." But her father didn't greet his daughter warmly. He came out to the hallway and said, "The funeral is tomorrow. I want to get some rest. Good night." With those words, he went to his bedroom. Ursula slowly climbed the old wooden stairs, making her way to her room. The door creaked as she opened it, and inside everything was just as it was on her last visit. The room was cozy, filled with memories from the past, soft light coming from old table lamps, bookshelves adorned with old photographs, and her childhood toys forgotten in the corner. Ursula stopped in the middle of the room, closing her eyes to soak in the atmosphere of the place. Memories of days spent with her mother overwhelmed her. She remembered how they read books together, cooked delicious meals, worked in the garden, milked cows. Ursula remembered telling her mother about her dreams. But now the girl realized how much she had changed. On one hand, she dreamed of wealth and luxury, but she also dreamed of independence and success. Yet at the same time, she had become a kept woman, dependent on Federico's generosity. Would her mother be proud of such a daughter? The next day, Ursula woke up to the bright sun shining directly into her eyes through the partially open window. "What time is it?" she thought. "Why didn't Dad wake me up? I'll be late for the ceremony." Ursula entered the church, the smell of incense hitting her nose. She felt the air heavy with the weight of her mistakes. Every step toward her mother's coffin seemed heavier than the last, as if invisible chains held her, not even allowing her to breathe. When the ceremony ended, Ursula slowly approached her father. His gaze was cold and rigid, as if he was looking through her rather than at her. She wanted to talk to him, as they hadn't spoken in the evening, and he had left in the morning without even waking her up. "Dad," she whispered, but her words got stuck in her throat, like futile admissions of her mistakes. "Forgive me, I've made so many mistakes. I should have come." Her father turned slowly, his eyes expressing a mixture of anger and sorrow. "You betrayed your mother. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for that." Her father's words felt like barbed arrows piercing Ursula's heart. She felt the bitterness of regret mingling with anger and pain. Tears streamed down her face, but she knew she couldn't undo anything. She deserved his anger, his pain, his hatred directed towards her. "Leave," her father whispered quietly. "Dad, forgive me." Ursula couldn't finish as her father repeated in a loud tone, "Leave." People nearby turned to look. Ursula realized her apologies were in vain. Her father would never forgive her. Ursula sat on the train, staring out the window, but her thoughts were restless, swirling inside her head. She agonizingly repeated the same question to herself. How could she have done this? Tears glistened in her eyes, reflecting the mist outside the window. Her heart was full of sorrow and remorse. Her parents had always been her support, doing everything to make her happy and successful. But what had she done in return? She abandoned them in a difficult moment, and now nothing could be undone, nothing could be fixed. Suddenly, she felt a strange tingling in her abdomen. Ursula involuntarily placed her hand on her stomach, feeling that something had changed inside her. Her heart raced as she suddenly remembered her last visit to the gynecologist. A couple of days before the funeral, she had found out she was pregnant. Mixed emotions flooded her, fear, uncertainty, but also some strange sense of hope. Ursula realized she now had a new responsibility, a new purpose. She had to change her life, correct her mistakes, and become better for this new being that would come into her life. With each mile traveled by the train, Ursula felt determination and strength awakening within her. Not all was lost. She could change her life, start over, do things differently. With these thoughts and feelings, she headed to the capital. Upon arrival, she would tell Federico everything, and together, they would build a real family where love, understanding, and trust would reign. She called Federico, and they agreed to meet at her rented apartment. "I have important news for you," the girl said. "Excellent. I also wanted to discuss something with you," Federico replied seriously. His voice carried a tone of superiority, the way he usually talked to subordinates, not to his beloved. Ursula greeted him cheerfully and in high spirits. "I've made lemon tart for you," her words filled with love and care. "Thank you," the man responded indifferently. They sat down at the table, and Ursula poured freshly brewed coffee into a mug. "You need to move out of this apartment," he said abruptly. "Oh, darling, I'm glad you started this conversation." The girl joyfully accepted the news. "It's long overdue for us to start living together. Especially," Ursula made a significant pause, looking cunningly at Federico. Meanwhile, the man didn't understand her excitement. He chuckled. "Oh, you're still such a young and naive girl, Ursula. I won't be living with you. I have a wife and kids. I live with her. You need to vacate the apartment because our relationship has run its course." Ursula couldn't find words. She silently gazed at the 40-year-old man with whom she wanted to build a family. She had already imagined them choosing baby items together, strolling with a stroller, and being happy together. But all her dreams shattered against the rocks of reality. She was just a mistress, a toy that had now become tiresome. Ursula was in shock. She couldn't believe what was happening. Everything seemed like a dreadful dream. She had lost her mother, and now Federico was leaving her, the person from whom she had hoped for support. "Why are you silent?" The man waved his hand in front of the girl's eyes. "What should I say?" thought Ursula, continuing to remain silent, as if hoping that Federico would read her thoughts. In short, the man continued, "I think you can find another apartment within a week. By the way, this tart is very tasty," Federico said with appetite, devouring the dessert and washing it down with aromatic coffee. "You said you don't live with your wife, that you only communicate about the children," Ursula said quietly, staring at one point. "And you believe that?" Federico raised an eyebrow. Ursula raised her eyes, which were already filled with tears. "Oh, my little one," Federico continued, "forgive me. I didn't know you believed all the nonsense men spew. And to be honest, no mistress has ever lasted more than a year with me. And here we were together for 2 years. I'm pregnant," Ursula confessed, hoping that this fact would somehow keep the man. "Don't worry, I'll give you money for an abortion," Federico replied calmly, as if it wasn't the first time. "It's your child. Do you want me to kill it?" The girl cried out. "My children are waiting for me at home. And this," the man pointed to her belly, "isn't even a child. It's a fetus, a fertilized egg. Not a child." "Leave," Ursula shouted, standing up from the table and pointing to the door. "No, darling, this is my apartment. I rent it, I pay for it, so you'll have to leave. Make sure your things aren't here in a week. I'm not a monster. I'm grateful to you for the wonderful and emotional 2 years. I can honestly say you're one of my best mistresses. So tender and innocent." Clearly, a village girl found herself a sweet daddy. But oh, how naive and foolish you are. You dropped out of school. Why? Silly girl, silly girl. "I'll give you money for the abortion. Don't worry," the man said, putting the last piece of lemon tart in his mouth. Then he took a sip of coffee, grabbed his things, and headed for the door. "Goodbye, Ursula. Don't remember me with bad words. I showed you what life can be like, beautiful and carefree. I entertained you for these 2 years. Everything was mutually beneficial, but now it's time for us to say goodbye." Ursula didn't respond. After hearing the front door slam shut, she walked into the bedroom and lay down on the bed. At that moment, she couldn't even cry. A million thoughts swirled in her head. Ursula stared into space, then drifted off to sleep, despite the bright sunlight outside. 7 years passed. For 7 years, Ursula didn't communicate with her father, and for 7 years, she supported herself, switching low-paying jobs each year. Currently, she works as a dishwasher in a cafe, and her salary doesn't always cover food. But she tries, not so much for herself, but for her beloved son, Alberto. In the past, when Federico offered Ursula money for an abortion, she realized she wouldn't give up her child for anything. With that money, she rented an apartment. She also sold all her designer clothes and gifts from Federico. That was enough to support herself and her child. But then the money ran out. She worked as an office cleaner, a shop assistant, and a gas station attendant. But she got fired because Alberto often got sick, and the young single mother had to take time off. No employer liked that. But now her son is 7 years old. He's in first grade, and he's independent enough for his age. "Son, it's me." Ursula entered the small but cozy suburban house she rented. "Mom," the 7-year-old dark-haired boy ran into the hallway and threw himself into the arms of the emaciated woman. "Alberto, do you know what's for dinner tonight?" "Probably rice again," the boy said disappointedly. "Almost. Rice with shrimp." "Shrimp?" Alberto said in surprise. "Yes, the chef gave me almost half a kilo for free. He said they miscalculated the portion and ordered too much. And out of kindness, he gave me these shrimp completely free," Ursula explained to her son. Marcus, the head and only chef in this cafe, knew about Ursula's difficult situation. He understood that her salary was catastrophically insufficient to provide for herself and her child. So he helped however he could, ordering extra supplies, as if by mistake, and giving them to the dishwasher. Although, of course, he paid for everything himself, including these shrimp. He felt sorry for this beautiful young woman who, out of foolishness, out of youth, made so many mistakes and now paid for them. He knew about Fernando, about her father, and about Ursula's mother. She told him everything when once after work he offered to walk her home. And then Ursula told him that she would never again rely on other people, and she would never take a cent from anyone. She'll learn everything herself. That's her life position now. Ursula believed that sooner or later the moment would come that would turn her life around. But years went by, and that moment never arrived. After enjoying a delicious dinner of rice with shrimp with her son, Ursula took another book on financial management from the shelf and began to read. She tried to dedicate every spare minute to self-learning. She regretted leaving university, but now she understood that the past couldn't be changed, and she needed to move forward. She often didn't have enough money for food, but she managed to set aside enough for books. It was a matter of priorities. It was important for her to feed and clothe her son, buy books, while she herself could suffice with plain rice or potatoes. Ursula sat at the table, leaning over the book, as if it were the key to her future. In her eyes burned the fire of ambition and determination. She knew the path to change could be long and difficult, but she was ready to see it through. Alberto watched her and couldn't understand why his mother worked so hard, studied, but earned so little. In his mind, the logical chain just wouldn't form. Day after day passed without any change in Ursula and Alberto's lives. The girl began to lose hope. Why do I exert so much effort and time into learning if I can't even apply my skills and practice? For the past 2 months, she had been trying to land a good job in finance, but no one even invited her for an interview because she lacked the appropriate education. She tried to argue that she could work for them even without formal education, citing the numerous books she had read and the countless lectures she had watched online. But no one wanted to listen to Ursula. Her boss, upon learning this, just laughed in her face. "Who would hire you? You were even fired from the store when you were just a salesperson." "I was fired because I had to stay home with my child, and I couldn't come to work," Ursula objected. "Just keep blaming the child then," the boss sneered. "Just admit you're a bad worker and you have no skills. Look at her, a dishwasher wants to be a financial expert. Where else would you see something like this? Is this some kind of joke?" The man laughed. Ursula listened to her boss's words, feeling how his mocking remarks wounded her self-esteem. She tried to hold back the tears and not show any weakness in front of him, but inside, a fire of indignation burned. She couldn't believe that her perseverance and desire for self-improvement were met with mockery. She couldn't accept the fact that her past determined her future, that no one saw the potential in her that she felt so strongly. That day Ursula didn't want to go home, despite the fact that her beloved son was waiting for her there. She felt terrible guilt towards Alberto, as he was growing up in poverty because of her. Maybe she really should have had an abortion. No, the girl immediately pushed away those horrible thoughts. She couldn't imagine her life without Alberto. For his sake, she had to keep trying. But where should she go? She had no idea. On her way home, Ursula stopped by the grocery store. She might have little money left, but tomorrow was payday. Today she would buy Alberto his favorite cereal and a packet of milk. He would be very happy. She handed several paper bills to the vendor. Do you want to take a lottery ticket as change? No, thank you. The draw will be in a week. The main prize is $1 million, the vendor said inspiringly. Ursula smiled. Thank you, but I'll pass. I don't believe in luck. The vendor counted out the change. The next day, Ursula came to work feeling down. You seem sad today. What happened? Marcus inquired. Nothing happened. I'm just not in the mood. It's payday today. Everyone's in a good mood, and here you are, sad. These pennies don't lift my spirits. You know I'm barely making ends meet, the dishwasher said hopefully. I have a little surprise for you. Maybe it'll cheer you up. Marcus pulled out a lottery ticket from his apron pocket and handed it to Ursula. I bought one for myself too, to test my luck. The main prize is $1 million. Ursula laughed. I can do without testing my luck. Life hasn't been kind to me. We'll see about that, Marcus said. I need to head to the kitchen now. Don't be sad, he added and walked away. Ursula indifferently examined the lottery ticket. Why did he give this to me? So I could be disappointed in luck again? Ursula tucked the lottery ticket into her pocket and promptly forgot about it. She dragged herself through the days, as if each step forward was through a thick fog. The thought consumed her mind that nothing was working out for her, that her life was awful and poor, and that she doomed her son to the same miserable existence. All her efforts seemed futile, and every time she looked at Alberto, she pitied him. She felt sad that he didn't have grandparents, that he didn't have a father to raise and support him. And it was all because of her foolishness and naivety. That Sunday started like any other. Ursula didn't wake her son. He didn't have school today. Let him sleep a little longer. But it was time for her to go to work. She quickly drank a cup of cheap instant coffee and hurried out of the house. Marcus greeted her at work. Hi, Ursula. Today we'll find out the lottery results, remember? Ursula admitted honestly, Marcus, I don't believe in luck. She put her hands in the apron pocket and felt the lottery ticket. She took it out and looked at it again. Marcus said with a smile, You've said that 1,000,000 times already. The draw starts on TV in 15 minutes. Come out to the hall. If the cafe owner sees me in the hall with the guests, he won't like it. Ursula, he may have a nasty temper, but he can't restrict your freedom of movement. And who knows if anyone will come in 15 minutes. You know, on Sundays, nobody comes here in the morning. Ursula smiled sweetly. In 15 minutes, she walked into the hall, took a seat, and stared at the TV screen. She knew she wouldn't win anything, but she didn't want to hurt Marcus's feelings. Marcus sat beside her, eagerly awaiting the start of the broadcast. His eyes sparkled with excitement, periodically glancing at Ursula with hopeful anticipation. And then, the television burst to life in vivid colors, showing the tense faces of the hosts, followed by a giant roulette wheel appearing on the screen. Ursula took a slow breath, preparing herself for the disappointment she expected. Tick-tock, tick-tock, the host's voice echoed, accentuating the tense silence in the room. The roulette wheel began to spin, with numbers appearing on the screen one by one. Ursula watched as each number flashed before her eyes, waiting for the moment she would hear her numbers. But each digit seemed to only deepen her doubts. Finally, the roulette slowed down, and the pointer stopped at one of the numbers. Ursula held her breath, ready for disappointment, but then she heard the host's words. Congratulations, ticket number 76432. You're the winner. Your prize is $1 million. Ursula couldn't believe her ears. Her heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst from her chest. Her eyes widened, and her lips parted slightly, as if she couldn't find the words to express her astonishment. Marcus exclaimed joyfully and hugged Ursula, congratulating her on her win. But Ursula sat in a daze. Could this be a dream? Will I wake up in just a few seconds? The thought flickered in her mind, but her musings were interrupted by the boss's words, which sounded like thunder in the clear sky. Look, the dishwasher won $1 million. You know, statistically, people who get quick and easy money also quickly squander it and end up right back where they started, at the bottom, the boss said mockingly, laughing. Then Marcus stood up for Ursula. Enough. Are you jealous? You could at least be happy for her. What's there to be jealous of? Lack of brains? She's only capable of washing dishes. I wouldn't even hire her as a waitress. I already know what she'll spend that money on. On all sorts of rubbish. Unable to bear such contempt for Ursula, Marcus stood up to intervene, but her quiet voice stopped him. Wait, she said quietly and approached the boss herself. She took off her work apron and threw it on the floor. I quit. And with this money, if you're interested, I could buy your cafe. Though why would I need that cheap dive? I'll buy a stake in some other business. The boss laughed even louder, not caring about the guests who were entering the cafe at that moment. He laughed so loudly that it seemed like he was having a real hysterical fit. It was clear that Ursula's words meant nothing to him. The girl left, feeling the contemptuous stares upon her, but in her heart, determination to change her life was already boiling. And the next day, the boss found no reason to laugh. After all, Ursula never returned to work, and there was no other dishwasher. He himself had to wash dirty dishes from morning till night. But the biggest surprise awaited him a month later when Marcus entered the cafe and handed him a newspaper with the headline, "Single Mother Who Won $1 Million in the Lottery Buys a Stake in Federico Russo's Business." At that moment, he realized that Ursula's words weren't empty, and her strength and determination had led to changes he couldn't even dream of. Ursula's life changed drastically. When Federico realized that his new co-owner was his former lover, he nearly fainted. "You were right, Federico. I was terribly stupid and naive," she said when they met. And now she is a co-owner and an active participant in managing the business. In her new role, Ursula has decided to fully dedicate herself to the financial management of the company. She spent a lot of time analyzing reports, studying accounting data, and assessing the company's current financial position. She understood that successful financial management requires a clear plan and strategy. Ursula assembled a team of specialists and worked with them to detail the plan, identifying priority areas for the company's development and the goals that needed to be achieved. An important part of her work was also creating a budget and expenditure plan to efficiently utilize the company's resources. She researched the market, analyzed competitors, and sought innovative ways to optimize financial processes. With each passing day, Ursula became more confident in her abilities and more competent in financial management. Her dedication to the business and her drive for success were evident to everyone in the company, and her decisive actions helped take the business to new heights of prosperity. Federico Russo couldn't believe that his company, which had been operating at a loss for the past few years, was once again turning a profit, and it was all thanks to his former lover. He became so admiring of Ursula that he began to show her attention again. But finding no reciprocal reaction, Federico started manipulating their child. He would say that Alberto was his son and they should be together for him. But Ursula, even in the face of his manipulation, knew how to respond. "Dear Federico, have you forgotten? Your children are waiting for you at home. And Alberto isn't even a child. He's a product, a fertilized egg, not a child," she said, not giving Federico even the slightest hope that he could influence her decision. At that moment, a memory resurfaced in Federico's mind from 10 years ago when he easily asked Ursula to have an abortion. He felt a pang of guilt, realizing how wrong he had been back then. He apologized and begged for forgiveness, but Ursula was resolute. She wasn't going to succumb to his manipulations. Meanwhile, her relationship with Marcus was growing closer. They spent a lot of time together, discussing future plans and supporting each other. Ursula felt that she had found support and understanding in Marcus, and she began to believe that happiness was possible even after difficult trials. At least Marcus was there for her, even when she had nothing to eat. Finally, Ursula entered a happy period in her life. She found her calling in business, built a relationship with Marcus, and was proud of her son. But the only thing that troubled her was her relationship with her father. It had been 10 years since she knew anything about him. Every time she thought about her father, her heart ached with longing and unresolved questions. How was he doing? How was his health? He didn't even know about his grandson. Ursula had tried many times to contact her father, but all her attempts were in vain. Her calls went unanswered because his phone number was blocked. Maybe he changed his SIM card, she thought. It was like a void in her life, like a missing puzzle piece that prevented her from fully enjoying her happiness. At the same time, Ursula was very afraid to go back home. Various frightening scenarios flashed through her mind. Perhaps her father would kick her out, maybe he wouldn't want to see her or even acknowledge her. The fear of rejection and misunderstanding proved stronger than her desire to mend the relationship with her father. Ursula shared her concerns with Marcus on one of those quiet evenings when they sat with a glass of wine, discussing life events. "You have to go home. You have to tell everything to your father," Marcus said with determination. Ursula raised her eyes, meeting his gaze full of support and understanding. "But what if everything goes wrong? What if he rejects me?" she said, trying to conceal her fears. Marcus took her hand in his and looked straight into her eyes, as if wanting to convey his confidence and determination. "Ursula, you are a strong woman. You shouldn't be afraid to move forward. Whatever happens, you must give yourself a chance to mend the relationship with your father. I'll be with you, supporting you in this. We can go there together," he said, as if firmly resolved that they would overcome all difficulties together. "No, I need to go there alone. I have to do this myself. And you will look after Alberto, won't you?" Just a week later, taking a short leave, Ursula sat on the train. Her heart was pounding as if it would burst out of her chest. The train slowly pulled away from the platform. Ursula walked from the station, the house not far away. Approaching the painfully familiar fence, Ursula clenched a small handkerchief in her hand and confidently headed to meet the past, prepared for any outcome. She pushed the gate, which, to her surprise, was open, walked to the front door, and knocked softly. After a few long minutes, the door opened, and Ursula saw a gray-haired old man. "Who are you?" he said. Of course, the old man immediately recognized his daughter, although she had changed a lot, but he could not believe his eyes. "Dad, it's me, Ursula. Forgive me." The girl couldn't hold back her tears. "Daughter," the father hugged her. "Every day I thought of you. I tried to contact you, but it was in vain. I've been waiting for you for so long. Dad, I was so afraid that you wouldn't forgive me. I made so many mistakes. Please, give me a chance to make things right. I really hope you can forgive me." Ursula spoke with trembling in her voice, hoping her words would reach her father's heart. "Ursula, my dear, I lost both my beloved wife and daughter at the same time, and if I can't bring your mother back, give me the opportunity to have my daughter back." That evening they talked for a long time, sharing memories of the past and taking the first steps to restore their lost connection. Ursula told her father about all the events that had happened to her during the years they hadn't spoken. She talked about Federico and her son Alberto, about her difficulties and joys. The father listened attentively to his daughter, supporting every word. Gradually, their conversation became deeper. They discussed their feelings, fears, hopes, and concerns. Ursula realized that despite all the obstacles that had arisen between them, their bond remained unbreakable. She felt that she had finally regained a part of the family that had been lost.